Hello and welcome to the world of Vimeo. My name is Klaus and today we will go through the CMS together to get to know its different features. Vimeo is a cloud-based interface. This means you don't have to install any software on your PC. You can simply log into your account easily and securely anytime via the browser. What we see here is the Start User Interface. This is essentially our communication channel that we use to get in touch with our customers. Overall, we have a highly modular system, which means we have a solid base with basic functionality that can be significantly expanded by adding various different functions and features. Since this is a dynamic process with regular updates, we use this homepage to keep our customers informed and updated about all news, new features, and new hardware to provide our customers with the most up-to-date information and ensure they are always aware of the latest developments. When working with Vimeo, the following three extremely crucial and absolutely significant points are the main classifications you will navigate. Everything is arranged here in a chronology. That means in the first step, you deal with the content. So they are either uploaded in the system or I can create them directly in the Vimeo system. In the second step, this content is then compiled into playlists, and in the final step, I can then manage my devices or add new devices. Let's just take a first look here in the content area. What we see here on the right side in light gray is our media database. So this is essentially the central and important place where all the crucial content is stored and saved. I can, provided I have already created content with graphic programs in advance or have ready-made video material, for example. I can easily and conveniently upload my content to Vimeo here through multiple options. You can certainly do this here, for example, by simply clicking on the plus symbol, then you can go to Upload Content. I achieve the same result if I click on this dashed area here, or if I open my drop-down menu with a right-click in this light gray area. I also get to the point where I can indeed actually upload content. We can process all common file formats: PDF files, Word documents, Excel sheets, images, and videos. I can very easily upload all common file formats here through these various points, and if necessary, they will indeed be converted accordingly, so that our system can process them. A small note here. If I just want to use PowerPoint presentations, there are two different ways. I can either upload the original PowerPoint file. This then leads to the PowerPoint file being converted into individual PDF pages. To prevent them from being scattered all over our media database, Vimeo automatically and efficiently creates a dedicated and organized folder and stores all the files in it. However, if I have put a lot of effort into creating smooth transitions and incorporating many animations, then a little tip at this particular point: it basically makes a lot of sense to save the file immediately in PowerPoint as an MP and then upload the video here accordingly, so all dynamic content remains intact. Let's just upload something now. For that, we click on Upload File. In this case, it will be an image, which means I now have normal access to my PC. I click on the corresponding file, click on Open, and down here we can already see it uploading, and in no time we have the content here in our media database. Now that we have successfully and confidently uploaded the content, we can very confidently go ahead and create the playlists. I'll just briefly touch on our highly integrated content management tool. We also access this via the drop-down menu. That means I right-click and can now build content directly in Vimeo. Let's call this Vimeo 1, and here we can see that we can essentially start working with the pre-established resolutions right from the very beginning. That means if I already know what kind of output medium, such as a television, monitor, or projector, will be connected to the player, or what resolution the screen behind it has, whether it is 1080p, 4K, or another resolution, I can already choose my desired resolution here and also determine whether the whole thing should be in landscape mode, which is wider than it is tall, or portrait mode, which is taller than it is wide. Since I have already created some content in advance, we will stay here in landscape mode and start with the content tool a bit. It's somewhat similar to PowerPoint in a way, but of course a bit more basic and in a simplified and stripped down version. We start initially at the beginning with a blank workspace. The content we create in viewneo, the slides or templates by default, essentially always have a duration of approximately 30 seconds. I can shorten or extend this here as I please at any given moment, at any time. So if I want to access my media here, I can simply go to my media file and I can already see all the images and videos that I have uploaded beforehand. With one click, I can select the desired content and load it into my content. Now, of course, I can go ahead and very easily scale it, move it around, and place it exactly how I want it to be positioned. I can also go ahead and add some additional text, and I could include my company logo, which we have stored here in our system for easy access and convenience. As shown earlier, I can enlarge, reduce, move, and position the elements here in any way I want. This flexibility allows me to place them exactly where I need, ensuring the layout is just right. We can already see these smart guidelines here, which give me a bit of support with the alignment of everything. These guidelines are quite helpful for ensuring proper alignment, making the design process smoother. Additionally, I can go here to add and edit the text as needed, which provides a high level of customization and precision. We always have some fonts pre-selected here from which I can then definitely choose. I can very easily change the font color here, add the placement, and in no time I've basically created and generated my content directly and inherently from the tool, seamlessly and effortlessly. Anyone who indeed wants to delve deeper into the details can feel free to contact us at any time. In addition to this comprehensive video here in this brief and detailed walkthrough that we are going through together, we also offer training sessions. As mentioned, feel free to contact us via email, and then we can specifically address the respective use case in these training sessions. Now we see the various different elements that are present in the media database. So we have a few pictures here, we have a logo, we also have videos, and we can already see some tiles equipped with different symbols. As I mentioned earlier, we have a modular and flexible system, and that's exactly what we see here. So we have a toolkit of various features, and with these features you can expand our system here. These features that are available as various plugins with us, and here we can already see some of the different possibilities we offer and many more. Now that we have successfully uploaded our content, the next important step is to combine this content into well-organized playlists. For that, we go to the playlist section and can easily create a new playlist anytime using the plus symbol and efficiently. In this specific case, let's refer to it as Viewneo 2, because I have already created a Viewneo playlist here in the past, and this new one will act as a continuation of that. If we now click on the new playlist, we see that there are no contents in it yet, because our content column is still completely empty. And now I can proceed to drag and drop my content into the playlist, ensuring that everything is properly organized and ready for playback. To create my playlist, I simply hold down the left mouse button, drag my content over to the desired location, and then I've quickly and efficiently created my playlist. This method is straightforward and saves a lot of time. Let's utilize a variety of different content here in order to make everything significantly clearer and much more colorful, vibrant, and visually appealing. As we can clearly observe in this particular instance, it is evident that there are different durations for the various pieces of content that we have here. For images and plugin content, we have a default duration period of approximately 15 seconds. For content created in Vimeo, we usually have a default duration period of approximately 30 seconds. Videos, of course, always have the exact length of the original video. Now, it is quite possible that 15 seconds is too short because we might want to transparently import an important message here, or we have an image with a lot of information that needs to be perceived. So I can right-click here at any given time to go into my settings and modify the duration, and I can say instead of 15 seconds, this content should be displayed for 45 seconds. Whenever I make such changes to the playlist, it is important that I confirm everything here with the check mark afterwards, otherwise the change will not be applied. Definitely. Absolutely. Of course, I can also go ahead and say I want to change the order. To do this, I simply select the desired content, hold down the mouse button, and drag it to the position where I want to display it. Besides adjusting the duration, I can also go ahead and schedule content. That means I can define exactly, in a precise manner, when this specific content should be displayed. There are now various different options available for this. I can choose to define it here for different weekdays. So I could say, I have content that should specifically only be displayed on the days of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, such as. Similarly, I can also go ahead and say that this content should run every day, but only within a certain time window, for example, between 8 and 12, or I can also go ahead and limit it based on a specific date, approximately perhaps in the range of. That means I can say I have content that should, for example, start today, be visible for a week, and then be directly removed from the playlist afterwards in a way that is designed to be easily managed and efficiently handled. So here I have various settings options available to use. You can find options to add a timestamp to this content, such as different formats, and customize the appearance. What I can also do here in the playlist section is to nest playlists within each other. This makes my work easier and more efficient, especially when I want to create different playlists for different screens and also have content that is relevant for both screens or all screens, ensuring that the playlists are tailored to the specific needs of each screen. As an example, I'll quickly and efficiently create an additional new playlist, name it Vimeo 3, and drag a few selected pieces of content into it. That means we now assume these contents, which are essential for understanding the context, are only relevant for playlist 3. These contents here are only relevant for playlist 2, specifically in this scenario. And now, as mentioned earlier, I want these contents to be played in both the second and the third playlist in particular. Now, of course, I can go ahead and incorporate these materials individually into the respective playlist simply by dragging and dropping them in, but then I also have to make any necessary and required changes in both the second and the third playlists whenever there are updates. To make my life easier, I can now go ahead and nest the playlists within each other. That means I take the Office playlist and simply drag it into the Vimeo 2, save the whole thing, and do the same with the third playlist. Here again, I take the Office playlist and drag it into the 3-item playlist. The advantage I have now is that if I make a change to the original Office playlist, for example, I currently have here now no longer 5 pieces of content, but now some more additional content is added, and now there are 7 pieces of content, and I preserve the whole thing. Then this change is directly applied everywhere I have nested the playlist in order to ensure consistency. That means I essentially perform the task once in a central location and it is essentially directly transferred everywhere the playlist is essentially nested. Now, it might be that these three pieces of content should potentially have a more significant priority than the general content. I can solve this very easily. Normally, our system would simply play all the content from top to bottom. That means the 3 items from the Vimeo playlist would come first, followed by the 7 items from the Office playlist. To prioritize the 3 contents at the top, I can simply go to the nested playlist and easily access the settings by right-clicking here on the icon located at the top right corner. I could now, just as we have seen with the individual content, also create a schedule for the entire nested playlist and could, for example, say these contents should only run at noon or at exactly specific times. I can also define the playback behavior and in particular, for example, specify that specifically only one of the 7 contents should be played per run. And when I save the whole thing, I now see that it no longer says 7 out of 7, but 1 out of 7. That means after the 3 local contents of the Vimeo playlist, a general content follows, and then the playlist starts over and would, fundamentally in essence, select the next content from the nested playlist in the next run. Once we have now set everything up here, our playlist is actually fully ready and we can now move on to dealing with the devices. In addition to our software, we also have our own hardware, meaning we have our own players. These players are connected to the desired screen via HDMI, and of course they also need power and an internet connection. The internet connection can be easily established either via LAN or Wi-Fi. And when I have connected the devices on site to my screen, they will display a 6-digit activation key after a short time. I can then just store it here in the system once, and afterwards the playlist will be downloaded locally to the player and played. Let's take this step together. I have a device activated here at the moment because I want to briefly introduce a few functions. We always manage the devices in groups in a convenient manner. This is meant to be a convenience, as I can make all of the settings and configurations within the device group, ensuring that they will then be adopted as the default settings when the devices are first put into operation. Of course, I can definitely still go ahead and also adjust settings on each individual device. This way, it will be easier for me when I, for example, start operating 20 or 30 devices and they all need to play the same playlist initially. I won't have to configure each device individually. Instead, I can use the default settings of the device group, which will then be applied to each device. So I can name my group here, define which of the playlists I have created are valid for this device group, and now I can go into the advanced settings in this section and make sure everything is set up correctly and functioning as expected. So if I manage my system across different countries, I can work with different time zones in various regions and manage effectively and seamlessly. That means I can define a time zone for an entire group of devices, or I can set different time zones for individual devices later, depending on where the devices are located and in operation. For example, in particular, if I already know whether my screens will definitely be installed in landscape or portrait orientation, I can adjust the rotation appropriately accordingly. As it is now in the standard settings, the screen is intended to be in landscape orientation. For example, if I am working with various types of steels or want to install my screens in portrait mode, I can perform the rotation here. I then have to try whether I need to turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, because naturally, of course, when I install the screen in portrait mode, which is the standard orientation, on the wall, I can either turn it to the left or to the right, depending on the situation. So this would be the setting that needs to be checked and verified. The update interval is the period after which the player regularly and automatically contacts our cloud to check if there are any potential changes and updates in the playlist. By default, we have it set to approximately 15 minutes. Since I have already created a device group here, I have therefore shortened it to 1 minute. Additionally, I can also enable a reports function such as a feature, for example. With this reports function, I can view the player log files, and we will call that up right away. Then I can see everything the player has done immediately. As you can clearly see, we have a significantly greater number of features on the left-hand side of the screen. These are additional features that can be added by enabling plugins, which offer various functionalities and improvements. And again, it should be mentioned that we have the possibility to offer personalized training for these additional features, as well as for the individual plugins or your specific use case. So if anyone is interested, feel free to contact us directly either via ticket or directly reach out to our sales team, and we will arrange a joint training session. So now I have created my device group. I have also already activated a device in my device group. This is the device here, which is lying on my desk in front of me and is connected to this screen. We will take another look at that in a moment. Here are the details that will also be displayed in the CMS for the respective hardware. This means we can also click on it here. We now have the first evidence here that at this point in time, my player currently has the status that is up to date. This means that the player is up to date, the internet connection is available, and the player can check in with our cloud at the specified intervals to see if there are any updates. So here too, as the person managing the system, I can easily, efficiently, and effectively get an overview and see right away if there are any players I need to check because something might possibly and potentially not be working properly, or if, like here, all of these boxes are in the correct status and all connected to the cloud via the internet seamlessly and smoothly. I see that I have named the device and I see what kind of hardware is behind it. In this case, it is our signage box. Secondly, it shows me the current app version, which operating system is running on it. And here a very important feature is the last heartbeat. So this is exactly the moment when the player, at this specific point in time, last had contact with our cloud service. Of course, I can now also go to the settings of the device here with a right click. This right click functionality allows me to either adopt all the presets from the group or set different settings individually for each player. This flexibility is useful in scenarios where different players have unique preferences or requirements. It ensures that each player can have the optimal configuration and a personalized experience. I had already mentioned the point about the very detailed reports. So if we now go to the reports section here, we can very clearly see what the player has played, for example, when the player synced, when it checked if it was up to date. And so I have an overview here of everything that happened on the respective device thoroughly and comprehensively. Additionally, I can unlock many more useful features and capabilities by adding plugins, such as one example is the live view. That means I can always check what the player is currently sending to the screen in combination with our player, and thus I can monitor it effectively. It's easy for me to have the ability to check everything centrally in between, because I might have screens in use that are not only at my location but are used across multiple locations. And so I still have the centralized ability to definitely monitor and absolutely manage everything here. Additionally, I can also perform a speed test here by right-clicking. This means I can check how fast my internet connection is. We have just carried out the whole process here, and now we can see the corresponding result. As long as the player has an internet connection, I can perform additional remote maintenance steps here through the CMS. We can see it. For one, when we right-click here, I have the option to restart the device. This is also depicted down here in the quick settings. So I can restart the device from my place at any given moment in time, from wherever I am, even if I am physically located in a completely different location than the player. Additionally, I can of course go here and also delete devices. We will do that now. I had only activated it to show how everything looks in the back end. And then we will take another look together at how everything looks when I start up the player for the very first time. Indeed, actually. Just briefly mentioned here, in this context, this modular system can be expanded with different plugins, functionalities, and additional features. I have mentioned that several times already. I'm just going to quickly scroll through here. So, if anyone is definitely interested in learning more about this, feel free to get in touch with us and we can absolutely go through everything together in a more personalized training session. If we take another look around here in the CMS, we also have the option to easily access our profile and settings. Here we also have a setting where we can select the CMS in different languages and additional options. That means, depending on which language or dialect the user is proficient in or what their native language is, they can select that language here and use the CMS fluently, easily, and efficiently, accordingly. I will delete my player now, then we will change the perspective and take a look at how it looks when I am on site and put the devices into operation. When I want to set up my player on site, I connect it to power, to the internet either via LAN or Wi-Fi, and to the respective monitor via HDMI. As soon as the player has an internet connection, it goes through a brief auto-installation process and then displays this 6-digit activation key on the screen after a few seconds. If I am now currently here in the CMS and have already created my device group, I can now add a new device here in the second tab using the plus symbol. We now name this. It could be located in the office or the entrance area. In our case, we name it Office, which is a convenient and descriptive name for our setup. And in the second line, I now carefully enter the activation key that is clearly displayed on the screen, ensuring accuracy. Shortly after, the device automatically downloads the playlist I previously defined and immediately starts playing the selected content without any delay. As we can see, the device is now visible here in the CMS, and it is currently in the process of updating itself. On the screen, we saw that it downloaded the different contents, and now it is starting to play them directly. If we now refresh the CMS again and click on the device group once more, we will see what we had before. That means the status is up to date. The device has just successfully checked in with the cloud and is now currently displaying the content that I have set up in the playlist right now. Additionally, I certainly have the ability to add more users to the CMS also. When I do that, I can also assign various and specific permissions in order to. We have already seen the different sections, such as content, playlists, and devices, and now we are in the user section. And for these sections, I can optionally grant either read-only or read and write access, or even completely disable some sections if necessary or required for specific cases. That means if I have colleagues who are actually responsible for editorial work or content creation in my team members, then I could, for example, go ahead, for instance, you could essentially disable the user and devices sections, and the new user would then only have access to content and playlists. As we have currently navigated through the system, we are on one level and we have two different account types. We have the professional account and we have the enterprise account. In the professional account, everything happens on a single level. This means that all devices, all playlists, all content, and all users are on one level. And when I add them here, they work in the same environment. Sometimes it makes sense to incorporate an additional level of hierarchy here. In this particular case, we offer an enterprise account that has multi-tenancy capabilities. That means I have a primary enterprise level, which allows me to manage multiple accounts efficiently and can then create so-called sub-accounts on a second level. Once I have successfully created these sub-accounts, I can then add individual users to them who will subsequently only have access to their respective sub-account and its resources. This means that they are unable to view or access the other sub-accounts, and they also cannot promote themselves to the admin level. And so I can go ahead and actually separate individual accounts from each other in a straightforward manner, even though I can manage them centrally and hierarchically here with ease and efficiency without any complications. As the administrator of the enterprise account, I can of course log into any sub-account at any given time. And what we have as a huge advantage, thanks to our incredibly modular system, which is in fact that I even have the possibility to actually individualize each and every SAP account if needed. This essentially means that I have the ability to equip one of my sub-accounts with specific plugins tailored to its needs, while having the choice to. That means I can really go ahead and in a very detailed manner, finely granularly customize everything here. Additionally, with the enterprise account, I also have the ability to share content and playlists, such as videos. I can indeed do this in a voluntary manner by sharing it. However, I also have the alternative to pass on a playlist in such a way that it becomes absolutely mandatory. Depending on how I want to configure it and work with it, in different ways, both options have their advantages. If I, for example, as the central office, decide to define the visual language or create content in advance for the sub-accounts, perhaps, indeed, I can then create the corresponding folder, drag the content into it, and then share this folder with others in advance. That means we now simply generate a new directory right here by just right-clicking and name it content. So it will be displayed here directly and immediately. Now, at this moment, I can drag and drop my content into this folder. And now I can very easily share this folder with a simple right-click. Here, I can choose whether I want to share it with all sub-accounts or only with specific sub-accounts. When I use this function and share it, I can immediately see that the gray symbol is no longer displayed, but instead we now clearly and definitely have the symbol for the shared function. This means that this folder is now essentially available to the sub-accounts, and they can access the content that I have placed in here. For example, if I, as the headquarters, want to specify certain content because it is indeed important information, such as if content needs to be transported to different branches, I can easily create a desired playlist in my main account and then simply go to the sub-accounts via the three dots to define a default playlist. That means, for example, I can say we have the Office playlist, which contains important company news that should be displayed in the different branches, but at the same time, I also allow these branches to create local content. That means I can now set this mandatory playlist here, and I can also define the playback behavior, which we have already learned about when nesting playlists. Should all content be played back to back or with interruptions, and should the mandatory playlist be played at the beginning or the end? And if I set this mandatory playlist here and save everything to the settings and configurations, then I can go down to the sub-account in the system and we will see what is meant. If we now go to the playlist section specifically and we create a new playlist and the sub-account explicitly says, I'll make my own playlist with local content and create it, then we see here the playlist is empty, so there are 0 contents in it. However, when we click on it, we immediately see the mandatory playlist grayed out right away. This essentially means that the sub-account has absolutely no way whatsoever to modify or remove this mandatory playlist from its own playlist in any manner. And this way, I have the central assurance that the content I manage is always up to date and is also played back in the respective sub-accounts. If we take another quick look quickly at the media section, which is very important, we can clearly see this particular content folder that we have previously shared. That means when I go here, I now see the 3 pictures that we just moved here, and I can also use these as a sub-account. That's all from my side for now. I hope it provided a good general overview. We welcome inquiries and queries and look forward to offering personalized training sessions. That means please feel free to get in touch if you want to learn more, and then we can definitely schedule a training session together.